Donald Trump has pulled off the greatest comeback in US political history. He defeated his rival Kamala Harris in all the swing states. In a victory speech in Florida, he promised a golden age for America.
President-elect Donald Trump claimed his victory just before midnight. The results rapid and decisive.
America has given us an unprecedented and powerful mandate. We have taken back control of the Senate. Wow, that's good.
This was the red tide that failed to materialize 2 years ago, this time sweeping Republicans into power across the board when it counted most.
We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
And he spoke of divine providence and the assassination attempt at Butler, Pennsylvania.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country and to restore America to greatness.
This morning, America started to respond to the return of Trump to power here in Washington, D.C.
If I'm being completely honest, I wasn't expecting it to go this way.
Let's see if they, can make America great. If they don't have great things planned, we'll definitely see it, and you'll hear it on TV, trust me.
And in his native New York.
I've been a Republican my whole life, and I think this nation voted without a conscience. And I think there's going to be a huge case of buyer's remorse.
I was watching the whole election the whole night, the whole thing, and I'm like, oh my God, Trump's about to win. And then when he won, I was like, oh my God, let's make America great again.
And in Blue Wall State, Wisconsin.
I think people are really looking for a change, and I think that was a big advantage that Trump was offering.
They voted for change by bringing back Donald Trump.
Well, Donald Trump secured victory by racking up wins across the battleground stakes. Our correspondent Brian O'Donovan has been taking a look at that path to victory.
Well, we were told that it would be all about the swing states. And boy, do they swing in Donald Trump's favour. Now, for the first few hours of counting last night, the battlegrounds were too close to call and were still in play. But shortly after 4 a.m. Irish time, the networks started to project that Donald Trump would win North Carolina, holding on to a state that Kamala Harris was threatening to turn blue. An hour later, he claimed another Sunbelt swing state, Georgia, flipping it back to red following what had been a surprise Joe Biden win 4 years ago. Now, at this point, Kamala Harris's only hope was to hold on to the so-called Blue Wall Rust Belt states. But at around 7 a.m. Irish time, the networks started to call the must-win battleground of Pennsylvania for Donald Trump, meaning it was all over for the Democrats. At around 10 o'clock this morning, there was another flip from blue to red when Donald Trump was projected to win Wisconsin. This took him past the 270 Electoral College vote threshold, meaning he didn't even need the remaining swing states to reach the magic number to win the White House.
Well, let's speak to our Washington correspondent now, Sean Whelan, who has been up all night. Sean, Donald Trump said today, we won for a reason. To your mind, what is that reason?
A reason is I think people have a lot of discontent in this country, and they saw Donald Trump as somebody that they could pour their discontent into and become a person, a force of nature, if you like, that would cure their problems and ease their discontents. And they wanted him to come in and shake things up. That's what they want. They just want change. They want something different. Even though they're going back to somebody that they had in office previously, they know what he was like in office, but they still have this warm, fuzzy, nostalgic glow about what things were like. They buy into this idea that the economy was better back when he was the president, by which they mean prices were cheaper. It wasn't as crucifyingly as expensive as it is now. And those people want change to happen, even though they forget that things that Trump did during the pandemic have caused a lot of the inflation that is in the economy here in the United States right now, and that it's really hard for a politician to just throw a switch and get rid of high prices. You know, it just doesn't happen like that. But they want change. They believe in him. They believe that he's not a politician. That's what a lot of people have said to us over the years. He's not a politician. Also, he ran a really good campaign, a 4-year campaign that planted ideas into people's heads, and he kept hammering through on those ideas that he was the best one to run the economy. He was going to secure the southern border. He was going to deal with crime. These are just ordinary issues that people think about a lot. They don't think about foreign policy. They don't think about macroeconomics. They just think about a few ideas, and they want change. And he built a wide-ranging coalition, and he picked up votes across the board. A lot of black men, a lot of Latinos, a lot of women, white women, they broke in favor of Trump, 52%. Kamala Harris did not get the kind of demographics that the Democrats usually pick up. Trump got them, and there was a reason for that.
All right, Washington correspondent Sean Whelan, thank you for that analysis. Well, international leaders have been sending their congratulations to the president-elect Donald Trump, who will take office in January. But what will his second term in office mean for the rest of the world? Let's take a look.
Il est minuit à Washington.
As the world woke to Trump 2.0, among the congratulations from international leaders were questions about what a second Trump term means beyond the US borders, so crucial to the win. The British Prime Minister's welcoming but cautious tone, repeated by many EU leaders also.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by congratulating President-elect Trump on his historic election victory. As the closest of allies, the UK and US will continue to work together to protect our shared values of freedom and democracy.
The Kremlin said Russian President Vladimir Putin had no immediate plans to congratulate Mr. Trump, but that Moscow was open to dialogue and would wait to see what happens. Also waiting to see the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky.
President Zelensky got his congratulations out very quickly, but the big question is on Ukraine is, does Donald Trump intend to keep supplying Ukraine with weapons, and is he going to push for talks with Russia that freeze the conflict where it is at the moment, even if it's too grand a notion to talk about peace?
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to Mr. Trump this afternoon amid uncertainty in the Middle East about what this result means for the conflict there. China's foreign ministry called the election result an internal affair, though analysts believe a trade war now looms.
And I suspect the Trump administration will say that we still have unfinished business here. So certainly the signals we've gotten so far are a lot more tariffs, or at least the threat of that.
For a leader with a tendency for being unpredictable, anything is now possible. Fiona Mitchell, RTE News.
Well, let's get some analysis now from White House columnist for The Hill, Niall Stanage. Niall, thanks for joining us again. Donald Trump has promised to put America first. What does that mean for the rest of the world?
Well, in terms of trade, one of his signature policies is massively increased tariffs. So he's talking about a 20% tariff on imports to the United States from anywhere, and at least a 60% tariff from China. Now, he argues that that will help rebalance and revitalise American manufacturing. A lot of economists think you'd get into an inflationary cycle.
And what about corporation tax? That's something we're quite concerned with in Ireland because it's something we make a lot of money from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. His platform going into this election was to reduce the rate of corporate tax from 21% to 15%. That's having already, during his previous term, reduced it from 35 to 21. Had Kamala Harris won, she would have put it up to 28%.
OK, and do you think that will have, will it bring companies back to the US?
I think it might do. I mean, companies are pretty good at, frankly, manipulating the tax code to their own advantage. But certainly that would be the intention of the policy.
In terms of wars happening around the world, something lots of people are concerned about. Ukraine. He said he could end that war in a day. How would he do that?
I think he would do it by trying to pressure Ukraine to give up, essentially to give up a significant amount of territory. I don't think there's any realistic possibility that President Trump, when he's back in office, continues US aid to Ukraine at anything like the clip that it's been going so far.
And the Middle East, you know, what's happening in Gaza. He was very pro-Israel in his last administration. What might he do in respect of Israel and Gaza?
So during the campaign, he was trying to appease Arab American voters to some extent, talking about them being interested in peace and so forth. The fear will be that that was a completely opportunistic move. He has previously suggested that Israel should get the job done in Gaza. What exactly that means is not clear, but it seems like it would be pretty bloody.
Do you envisage that Israel will be happy to see Donald Trump back in the White House?
Oh, absolutely. I think Benjamin Netanyahu played for time with the hope that that would happen. Netanyahu in many ways humiliated President Biden, continuing to operate with relative impunity. I think part of that calculation was keep things going until Trump perhaps got back into the White House. That's not going to happen.
All right, Niall Stalledge, White House columnist with The Hill. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have plenty more here from Washington, D.C., but for now, back to you, David.
Thanks very much, Sharon. Back home, Tánaiste Micheál Martin has congratulated Donald Trump on his victory, saying Ireland and the United States shared 100 years of close diplomatic relations, as well as significant economic ties. Sinn Féin's Louise O'Reilly said their priority was to work with the incoming administration to promote Ireland's interests. However, Labour leader Ivana Bacik described his victory as devastating, with appalling consequences for the world.
Given that outgoing US President Joe Biden was arguably more Irish than ourselves, there was always going to be a different relationship with his successor. The fact that the next Irish government will be engaging with Donald Trump in the White House means it could be substantially different. That's because there's concern about some of the incoming president's economic policies, like the promised introduction of protectionist tariffs on imported goods from places like the EU. The approach from the coalition today was cautious, congratulating Mr. Trump and talking about working together.
Along with our European partners, we will focus on the key policies and principles that the European Union wants to advance in terms of fair trade and in terms of a good transatlantic relationship.
While Sinn Féin didn't issue any statement, the Labour Party didn't feel constrained about articulating its hardline views on Donald Trump.
It is devastating. I say it is devastating. The US has spoken, but the consequences worldwide will be appalling. When we look at the impact that we know is going to be happening on climate.
In the Dáil today, Taoiseach Simon Harris warned that there's a looming risk of a transatlantic trade shock, but added the coalition's multi-billion euro saving funds will cushion any blow. Experts say even if tariffs are introduced in the second Trump presidency, it does not mean disaster for Ireland.
When we look at our export sector, things like the ICT sector, pharmaceuticals, medical technology, it's not really in the eye of the storm. It's more the next wave of investment, artificial intelligence, microchips, electric vehicles. That's where a lot of the trade tensions globally are at the moment, and thankfully Ireland isn't in those sectors.
With a general election to be called before the end of this week, it will be the next coalition government which will have to navigate any choppy waters with President Trump. The likelihood is that it will adopt a wait-and-see approach, reacting to decisions made by President Trump rather than the promises he made on the campaign trail. Paul Cunningham, RT News, Leinster House.